The wine glasses clinked around the table as my family celebrated what they considered excellent news. My sister Vanessa sat at the head of our parents' dining table, practically glowing with satisfaction as she made her announcement. So as I was saying, Vanessa continued, swirling her champagne, I found the perfect solution to our wedding budget crisis. Maya's savings account had exactly what we needed. I set down my fork carefully, maintaining the calm expression I'd perfected over 8 years of federal banking investigations. Could you repeat that? Oh, don't play innocent. Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. The account you barely touch. The one at Northern Trust Bank. I needed it more than you do. My mother reached over to pat Vanessa's hand. It's really the most practical solution, Maya. You live in that tiny apartment, you drive that old Honda. You clearly weren't investing in anything important. Vanessa's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. How exactly did you access my account? I kept my voice level, professional. It was the same tone I used when interviewing bank executives about suspicious transaction patterns. Vanessa exchanged a look with our mother before answering. Mom still had your old account information from when you were in college. We used it to set up the transfer. Don't be dramatic about this. I see. I took a sip of water, processing the admission. And how much did you transfer? $47,000, Vanessa said proudly. It covered the venue upgrade, the designer dress alterations, and the honeymoon suite in Bali. The wedding planner said it's going to be absolutely spectacular now. My father finally spoke up from his end of the table. Maya, your sister deserves this. She's worked so hard planning this wedding. You can always save more money. You're still young. I'm 32, Dad. Vanessa is 28. Exactly, my mother interjected. You have plenty of time to rebuild your savings. Vanessa needs this now. Besides, what were you even saving for? You don't have a boyfriend, you're not buying a house, you just let money sit there doing nothing. I smiled slightly, thinking about the actual purpose of that account, but said nothing. Vanessa's fiancé, Derek, shifted uncomfortably beside her. Maybe we should have asked first, Van. Oh, please, Vanessa rolled her eyes. It's family money. Maya would have said yes anyway. I just saved us all the awkward conversation. Would I have? I asked quietly. Of course you would have, my mother said firmly. Because you're a good sister. And because family helps family. We've always shared everything. I thought about the countless times my family had shared my belongings growing up. My graduation money that funded Vanessa's spring break trip. My car that became Vanessa's car when she decided she liked it better. My college fund that somehow partially redirected to Vanessa's sorority expenses because she needed the networking opportunities. When is the wedding? I asked. Vanessa's face lit up. Saturday. Just 4 days away. You're still coming, right? I know you've been busy with work, but you have to be there. Wouldn't miss it, I said truthfully. Where's the venue again? The Grandmont Estate, Vanessa practically squealed. That's what your money paid for. The upgrade from the garden pavilion to the grand ballroom. It's going to be absolutely perfect. 200 guests, a 12-piece orchestra, roses imported from Ecuador. Derek's family is going to be so impressed. Derek's mother, Patricia, who had been quietly observing from across the table, cleared her throat. It does sound lovely, Vanessa. Though I must say I'm surprised you had access to Maya's accounts. That seems rather unusual. Oh, we're very close, my mother jumped in. Not like some families who keep secrets from each other. We share everything. Maya understands that Vanessa's happiness is the family's happiness. I noticed Patricia's eyebrows rise slightly, but she said nothing more. Well, I stood up, folding my napkin. This has been illuminating. I should get going. Early morning tomorrow. Still working that boring bank job? Vanessa asked with a hint of mockery. What is it you do again? Process paperwork or something? Something like that, I replied evenly. Congratulations on the wedding, Vanessa. I hope everything goes exactly as planned. My mother stood to hug me. Don't be upset, sweetheart. This is for the best. And who knows? Maybe you'll meet someone at the wedding. We've seated you with some of Derek's single colleagues. I smiled and said nothing. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from my colleague Agent Harrison. Wire transfer flagged in Northern Trust system. Unauthorized access pattern matches your case parameters. Need you to verify. I texted back, verified. Subject is family member. Proceeding with scheduled protocol. His response was immediate. Confirmed. Team mobilizes Friday evening. Venue secured for Saturday morning. I drove home to my tiny apartment, a modern downtown loft I'd bought cash 3 years ago, and opened my laptop. The Northern Trust account Vanessa had raided wasn't my primary account. It was a monitored account I maintained specifically for my work with the Federal Banking Inspection Division, a joint task force between the Treasury Department and the FBI focused on financial crimes. The $47,000 Vanessa had stolen was federal monitoring money, part of a larger investigation into Northern Trust's internal security failures. My mother's access to old account information shouldn't have worked. The bank systems should have required updated authorization. The fact that the transfer went through represented a significant security breach, exactly the kind of vulnerability my team had been documenting for 18 months. Vanessa had just provided the perfect real-world test case of systematic failure. I pulled up my files on the Northern Trust investigation. 7 months ago, we'd identified multiple instances where outdated account authorizations remained active in their system. Elderly customers had reported unauthorized transfers by estranged family members. Small business owners discovered former partners still had access years after removal. The bank had insisted their security protocols were flawless. Now I had personal evidence to the contrary. My phone rang. Director Walsh, my supervisor at the Treasury Department. Maya, I heard about the flag. Are you all right? I'm fine, sir. Actually, this incident provides perfect documentation for our case. Your own family raided a federal monitoring account? They didn't know it was a federal monitoring account. They thought it was my personal savings. That's still theft, sir. Which is why I've already filed the required reports. The money was transferred to multiple vendors for a wedding event. The venue is the primary recipient, the Grandmont Estate. I've requested coordination with the FBI fraud unit for Saturday morning. Maya, you understand this will involve your family members being questioned. I understand completely, sir. The law applies to everyone equally. Another pause. All right. I'll authorize the operation. But I want you off the direct interview team. You can be present, but Harrison leads. Understood. Friday morning I went to work at the Federal Reserve Building as usual. My actual office wasn't at a bank branch. I worked in financial crimes investigation, specifically examining how banks failed to protect customer assets. My title was Senior Inspector Financial Crimes Division, Treasury Department. I held Level 4 security clearance and had testified before Congress twice about banking security failures. My family thought I was a low-level bank employee because I'd never corrected them. When I got the job 8 years ago, fresh out of my master's program in forensic accounting from MIT, my mother had said, "That's nice, dear. Maybe you'll work your way up to manager someday." I'd never mentioned the MIT degree either. They thought I went to state school. Agent Harrison stopped by my desk. The Grandmont estate is cooperating fully. When we explained a federal investigation was involved, they offered complete access. Apparently, your sister has been difficult with their staff. That sounds like Vanessa. The venue coordinator mentioned that your sister insisted on contract terms that raised some flags. She demanded all deposits be non-refundable and all payments be made in advance, cash or wire transfer only. No credit cards. I looked up sharply. That's unusual. That's what we thought. We pulled the venue's records. She's not the first client to request these terms, but she is the first one whose funding source came from a flagged account. You think the venue might be involved in something larger? Harrison shrugged. Too early to tell. But it's interesting. We're expanding the investigation scope. Friday evening my mother called. Maya, sweetie, I just wanted to make sure you're not upset about the money situation. You understand it was for the best, right? I understand perfectly, Mom. Good. Because Vanessa was worried you might make a scene at the wedding. You won't, will you? I won't make a scene, Mom. I promise everything will proceed according to protocol. Protocol? What an odd way to put it. Anyway, the rehearsal dinner is tonight, but I know you're too busy with work. We'll see you tomorrow at the wedding. 2 o'clock sharp. Don't be late. I'll be there early, actually. Oh, well, that's sweet. Maybe you can help with last-minute preparations. Something like that. Saturday morning arrived cool and clear. I dressed in my usual professional attire, a tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, and the credentials badge I typically kept in my desk drawer. I arrived at the Grandmont estate at 8:47 a.m. The venue was a sprawling historic mansion with manicured gardens and a ballroom that could host events for 500 guests. The parking lot was already busy with catering trucks and florist vans. I could see wedding decorations being arranged through the tall windows. I parked next to the 3 black SUVs already positioned near the main entrance. Agent Harrison met me at the door, along with 6 other federal agents and 2 representatives from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. "Morning, Inspector Chin." "Ready." "Ready." The venue coordinator, a polished woman named Margaret, approached us nervously. "The bride arrived 15 minutes ago. She's in the bridal suite with her bridesmaids and mother." "Should we?" "We'll need to speak with her," Harrison said professionally. "But first, we need to secure the venue and document the financial transactions. No one leaves until we've completed our initial interviews." Margaret nodded, her face pale. I should mention, when I informed Miss Chin that there was an issue with her payment, she became quite aggressive. She insisted everything was paid in full and threatened to sue us for breach of contract. "What issue with the payment?" I asked. Margaret glanced at me, then at my badge. "The wire transfer was flagged by our bank this morning. They put a hold on it pending verification." I tried to explain to Miss Chin that we needed to confirm the source of the funds, but she wouldn't listen. Harrison and I exchanged looks. The Northern Trust security protocols had finally kicked in, 24 hours too late but better than never. "Let's go have a conversation with the bride," Harrison said. We walked through the elegant hallway toward the bridal suite. I could hear Vanessa's voice before we reached the door. "I don't care what your bank says. That money is mine. I transferred it legally from a family account. This is my wedding day, and if you think I'm going to let some banking error ruin it, you're insane." Harrison knocked firmly on the door. Vanessa yanked it open, her face flushed with anger. She was already in her wedding dress, an elaborate creation of silk and lace that probably cost $15,000. "What now?" "I already told you people." She stopped mid-sentence when she saw the federal badges. "Miss Vanessa Chin?" Harrison said formally. "I'm Special Agent Harrison with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. These are my colleagues from the Treasury Department's Banking Inspection Division. We need to speak with you about a wire transfer made from Northern Trust Bank on Tuesday evening." My mother appeared behind Vanessa, her face going white. "What is this? What's happening?" Then she saw me standing slightly behind Harrison in my full credentials. "Maya? What are you wearing? Why do you have a badge?" "Mrs. Chin," Harrison continued, "we need to speak with both you and your daughter about unauthorized access to a federal monitoring account." "Federal monitoring account?" Vanessa's voice rose to a shriek. "It was Maya's savings account." "No," I said quietly, stepping forward. "It was an account maintained by the Treasury Department for investigating banking security failures. The account you accessed belongs to the federal government. The money you transferred was federal funds." The color drained from Vanessa's face completely. You work for the government?" "I'm a senior inspector with the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Division. I've held this position for 8 years. The account you accessed on Tuesday was part of an active federal investigation into Northern Trust Bank security protocols." My mother grabbed the doorframe for support. "But you said you worked at a bank. You said it was just paperwork." "I investigate financial crimes at banks. There is quite a bit of paperwork involved. You assumed I was a teller. I never corrected you." Harrison pulled out his tablet. "Miss Chin, Mrs. Chin, you're both going to need to come with us for formal questioning. The unauthorized transfer of federal funds is a serious offense." "But I didn't know." Vanessa's voice cracked with panic. "How was I supposed to know it was a government account? It was just sitting there." "That's part of the problem we're investigating," I said calmly. "The fact that you were able to access the account at all represents a significant security failure by Northern Trust Bank. However, the transfer itself still constitutes theft of federal property." 3 bridesmaids had appeared in the doorway behind Vanessa, their faces masks of shock. "This is insane," my mother said, her voice shaking. "Maya, tell them this is a misunderstanding. Tell them you gave us permission." "I didn't give you permission, Mom. I didn't even know about the transfer until Vanessa announced it at dinner on Tuesday. At which point I immediately filed the required federal reports. You filed reports on your own family? My mother's voice was disbelieving. I filed reports on a federal crime. The relationship of the perpetrators to me is irrelevant to the law. Harrison gestured toward the hallway. Ladies, if you'll come with us. We have interview rooms set up in the venue's conference center. But the wedding. Vanessa was crying now, mascara beginning to run. The guests are arriving in 5 hours. Derek is already at the church. This can't be happening. The venue is currently secured as part of our investigation, Harrison said. No event will be taking place here today. As if on cue, 2 more agents appeared, speaking with the catering staff who were starting to arrive. I could see the florists being redirected, the musicians being stopped at the entrance. Derek's mother, Patricia, came rushing down the hallway. What on earth is happening? Security won't let anyone into the ballroom and there are federal agents everywhere. She stopped when she saw the scene at the bridal suite door. Mrs. Morrison, I said professionally. I apologize for the disruption. There's been a significant development regarding the funding source for this event. The venue is currently part of an active federal investigation. Patricia's eyes widened as she took in my credentials badge. You're... Maya, what is this? I'm Senior Inspector Maya Chin, Treasury Department Financial Crimes Division. Your future daughter-in-law and my mother accessed a federal monitoring account without authorization. The funds used to pay for this wedding were obtained illegally. Patricia turned to look at Vanessa, who was now sobbing openly. You stole federal money? I didn't steal it. It was Maya's account. How was I supposed to know she worked for the government? Perhaps, Patricia said icily, you should have asked before taking money that didn't belong to you, regardless of who it belonged to. My father arrived next, having apparently been parking the car. What's all this commotion? Vanessa, why are you crying? The wedding doesn't start for hours. He stopped when he saw the federal agents. Mr. Chen, Harrison said, your wife and daughter are being detained for questioning regarding the theft of federal funds. Are you aware of any involvement you may have had in accessing or authorizing the transfer from Northern Trust Bank? My father's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. He looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. Maya? What's happening? Vanessa and Mom stole $47,000 from a federal monitoring account, Dad. I'm the federal inspector responsible for that account. The wedding is cancelled and they're both facing potential criminal charges. But, you work at a bank. You process paperwork. I investigate financial crimes at banks. I have a master's degree from MIT in forensic accounting. I've worked for the Treasury Department for 8 years. I hold level 4 security clearance. I've testified before Congress. And the account Vanessa raided was federal property. Vanessa slumped against the doorframe. This isn't real. This can't be real. My wedding. Derek appeared at the end of the hallway, still in his casual clothes, clearly confused by the scene. Baby, what's wrong? Why are there federal agents here? Patricia turned to her son. Derek, we need to talk. Now. As Derek and his mother stepped aside for an urgent conversation, Harrison began reading Vanessa and my mother their rights. Not arresting them yet, but making clear the severity of the situation. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. Vanessa's sobs grew louder. Several of her bridesmaids had started crying too, though I suspected they were more upset about missing the wedding than concerned about Vanessa's legal troubles. Another agent approached Harrison. Sir, we've confirmed the venue's payment records. The transfer from Northern Trust was flagged this morning when the venue's bank ran standard fraud detection protocols. Northern Trust has been notified and is cooperating fully. They've acknowledged the security failure that allowed unauthorized access to the account. Harrison nodded. Document everything. This is going to be a textbook case for banking security reform. My mother finally seemed to grasp the reality of the situation. Maya, please. You can't do this to your sister. To your family. We made a mistake, but we can fix it. We'll return the money. We'll apologize. Just make this go away. I can't make this go away, Mom. This isn't about family dynamics anymore. This is about federal law. The moment you access that account without authorization, you committed a federal crime. The moment you transferred those funds, you committed theft of government property. And the moment those funds were used to pay for services, you involved multiple third parties in a federal investigation. But you're our daughter, my mother cried. Doesn't that mean anything? It means I'm disappointed, I said quietly. It means I'm hurt that you thought so little of my work, my life, my choices that you felt entitled to take from me without asking. But it doesn't mean I can ignore federal law. No one is above the law, Mom. Not even family. Derek had finished his conversation with his mother. He approached Vanessa slowly, his face carefully neutral. Van, is it true? You stole money from Maya. It wasn't stealing. It was family money. She wasn't using it. But it wasn't actually her money, Derek said slowly. It was government money. And you didn't ask. You just took it. I took it for us. For our wedding. For our future. Derek looked at Patricia, then at me, then back at Vanessa. I need some time to think. Think. Vanessa's voice rose to a shriek. About what? The wedding is in 5 hours. There is no wedding, Van, Derek said quietly. Look around. Federal agents. Cancelled venue. Your family facing criminal charges. There's no wedding. We can fix this. We can go somewhere else. We can. No, Derek said firmly. We can't. Even if we could, I'm not sure I want to marry someone who would steal from their own sister and then blame her for the consequences. Patricia stepped forward, her voice kind but firm. Derek, let's go. Vanessa and her family need to handle this situation. We'll talk later. As Derek and his mother walked away, Vanessa collapsed entirely, sinking to the floor in her expensive wedding dress, sobbing uncontrollably. Harrison gestured to 2 female agents. Please escort Miss Chin and Mrs. Chin to the interview rooms. Handle them gently, but make sure they understand the seriousness of the situation. As my mother and sister were led away, still in shock, still crying, my father stood frozen in the hallway. You really did all this? He asked me quietly. Over money? Over federal law, Dad. Over a crime. If a stranger had accessed that account, would you expect me to ignore it because prosecuting them would be inconvenient? He had no answer. I love you all, I continued. But love doesn't mean enabling criminal behavior. It doesn't mean pretending crimes didn't happen because family committed them. Vanessa made a choice. Mom made a choice. They chose to steal money without asking, without considering consequences. Now they face those consequences. Your sister's life is ruined, my father said. No, Dad. Her wedding day is ruined. Her life is what she makes of it going forward. Maybe this will be the wake-up call she needs to understand that actions have consequences. That other people's belongings aren't hers to take. That the world doesn't revolve around her wants. I walked past him toward the interview rooms where Harrison was setting up. Behind me, I could hear vendors being turned away, guests being notified of cancellation, the entire elaborate wedding production grinding to a halt. The interviews took 4 hours. Vanessa alternated between sobbing, anger, and desperate attempts at justification. My mother tried repeatedly to blame me for not making my job clear, for tricking them by maintaining a federal account that looked like a personal account. Harrison was patient but firm. The facts were simple. Unauthorized access to a federal account, theft of federal funds, and attempted use of those funds for personal benefit. The investigation into Northern Trust security failures was secondary to the immediate criminal matter. By 2 p.m., the time the wedding should have started, my mother and Vanessa were released with formal warnings and notices to appear for federal proceedings. The U.S. Attorney's Office would decide on formal charges, but at minimum, they faced significant fines and potential probation. Northern Trust Bank faced a much larger investigation and likely federal sanctions for their security failures. I stood in the parking lot as my family left in separate cars. My father drove my mother, who was silent and hollow-eyed. Vanessa left with one of her bridesmaids, still crying. None of them looked at me. Patricia Morrison approached as I was getting into my own car. Inspector Chin? Mrs. Morrison. I'm sorry about all this. Don't be, she said crisply. You did your job. You upheld the law. And you potentially saved my son from a very difficult marriage. I smiled slightly. That wasn't my intention. I know. But it's a valuable side effect nonetheless. She paused. For what it's worth, I think you're remarkable. The strength it takes to do what you did today knowing how your family would react. That's real character. Thank you. If you're ever interested in changing careers, Derek works in corporate law. His firm always needs good investigators with your credentials. I suspect you might want some distance from your family for a while. I took her card, genuinely touched. I appreciate that. As I drove home, my phone began buzzing with texts. Not from my family, they were radio silent. But from colleagues, from my director, from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Director Walsh called as I pulled into my parking garage. Maya, exemplary work today. I know it was personal. I know it was difficult. But you handled it exactly right. The Northern Trust case is going to result in major banking security reforms. Your family's theft ironically provided the perfect documentation of systemic failure. Thank you, sir. Take a few days off. You've earned it. And Maya? I'm recommending you for promotion. Lead inspector. Your own team. You've more than proven you can handle it. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a long moment thinking about the day. My phone buzzed again. A text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Derek. My mom gave me your number. I wanted to say thank you. And I'm sorry your family put you in this position. You deserve better. If you ever want to grab coffee and talk about anything other than federal crimes, I'd like that. I smiled, saved the number and texted back. Coffee sounds good. How about next week? His response was immediate. It's a date. A non-wedding related date. I laughed out loud in my empty car. 3 days later my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Why? Her voice was small, defeated. The U.S. attorney called. We have to pay back the $47,000 plus fines. $20,000 each in fines. And we're on probation for 2 years. I know. I received the same report. Vanessa won't speak to me. She blames me for having your account information. Derek broke up with her. She moved back home, but she just stays in her room crying. I said nothing. Your father says we should have treated you better. That we never appreciated what you accomplished. He's right. A long pause. I didn't know you went to MIT. I didn't know you worked for the Treasury Department. I didn't know any of it because I never asked. I just assumed. You assumed I was unsuccessful because I didn't brag about my success. You assumed I was unimportant because I didn't demand attention. You assumed my money was available because you'd always been able to take from me before. Yes. Her voice cracked. All of that. And I'm sorry, Maya. I'm truly, genuinely sorry. Not because we got caught. Not because of the fines or the probation or the ruined wedding. But because we treated you terribly, and you deserved so much better from us. It was the first real apology I'd ever heard from my mother. Thank you for saying that, I said quietly. Is there any chance? Can we fix this? Can we fix us? I don't know, Mom. That's going to take time. And it's going to require actual change, not just words. It's going to require you and Vanessa and Dad to really think about how you've treated me for years. Not just this incident, but everything. We will. I promise we will. Just, don't give up on us completely. I won't give up on you. But I won't tolerate being treated as less than I am ever again. Clear boundaries, Mom. Real respect. Or we don't have a relationship. Clear boundaries, she repeated. Real respect. I understand. After we hung up, I looked around my apartment. My beautiful, paid-for apartment with its view of the city skyline. I thought about my career, my accomplishments, my upcoming promotion. I thought about coffee with Derek next week and the new team I'd be building and the banking security reforms that would come from this case. My family had tried to take from me, assuming I had little to lose. Instead, they'd lost everything and I'd lost nothing that mattered. I opened my laptop and began drafting my acceptance speech for the promotion. Lead Inspector Mayachin had a nice ring to it. And somewhere across town, in a house full of regret and consequences, my family was finally learning what I'd always known. That quiet competence beats loud entitlement every single time. The wedding that never happened became a federal case study. Northern Trust Bank implemented massive security overhauls. And I got to do what I did best. Protect people's assets and hold wrongdoers accountable. Even when those wrongdoers were family. Especially when those wrongdoers were family. Because that's what real integrity looks like.